Good afternoon to you all, and welcome to the 19th edition of the EQ Lunch and Learn. My name is Mucha Mlingo, and I am your host this afternoon for yet another scintillating conversation. International Youth Day is commemorated every year on the 12th of August, bringing youth issues to the attention of the international community and celebrating the potential of youth as partners in today's global society. The world needs to leverage the full potential of all generations. We must collaborate to foster successful and equitable intergenerational relations and partnerships to ensure that no one is left behind. The time for organizations to proactively and strategically attract, engage, and retain millennial talents is now, as millennials from ages 18 to 34 have become the largest generation in the workforce. This young generation are not just the future leaders, they are the leaders today. And organizations are now realizing the importance of engaging this up and coming generation within the workplace. Welcome again to this 19th edition of the EQ Lunch and Learn. And today, our topic is millennials and emotional intelligence. Whether you are a millennial or you work with and lead millennials, welcome to this great conversation where we're going to be talking about how emotional intelligence can help organization harness the talents of the youth and also help millennials to advance in their personal and professional development. As is the custom, I am not alone today. I am with a phenomenal group of millennials, phenomenal group of young people who are going to share their insights as we have this conversation. So, allow me to bring up the team that are going to be having this conversation with me. Let me start by bringing up the one gentleman in the room, Habel Mwashigadi. You are very welcome to this conversation today. Habel, also known as Kovu, is a Kenyan youth who defines himself as a global citizen. As a kid who hails from Mombasa, he currently works as a construction project manager based in Nairobi with 3 years' experience in delivering project management and support services across East Africa in real estate projects that cut across from commercial developments, industrial setups, and multi purpose developments for major clients. He loves chapati just as much as he loves his white shoes. He is a father to 2 dogs, and you can connect with him on LinkedIn. Good afternoon, Havel, and welcome to our session today.
Thank you very much, Mucha. Lovely to be here.
Awesome. I also have with me two phenomenal ladies, and let me start by bringing Shiba on the screen. All right, so Shiba, really happy to have her, is an innovative leader with 10 years plus experience in strategic leadership roles in the professional training industry. She has experience leading the implementation of Centonomy's knowledge and learning strategy in its mission to become the learning, leading, and training organization in financial literacy in Africa. If you want to learn more about Shiba, you are welcome to connect with her on LinkedIn. Shiva, good afternoon and welcome to today's conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mucha. Looking forward to the chat today.
Awesome. And last but not least, I have with me Nyawira Maina. And Nyawira is here with us as well, a certified organizational management master's graduate. She possesses skills in strategy implementation, corporate growth, and leadership qualities. She has over 5 years' experience in diverse industries such as advertising, manufacturing, and in the tech sector. A statement she lives by every day is dedicated to excellence, in whatever input. Nyawira and I have some common friends, and I must testify that this is a statement, as much as I don't know her well, I have seen come through. She delivers whilst channeling her daily contributions in life to develop leaders, not followers, to shepherd, not sheep. Nyawira, so good to have you with us today. If you'd like to connect with Nyawira, you can connect with her on LinkedIn. Hi, Nyawira.
Oh, I'm really, really humbled, Mucha. How are you?
Very well. Look at
Thank you.
this panel. Are they not amazing? I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we are going to have with this powerhouse of young people that we are conversing with. Our topic is emotional intelligence and millennials. And as always, let me start with our opening question. And I want to ask this, Nyawira, I'll start with you since I brought you on last, and then I'll ask the same question to you, Habel. What is the importance of International Youth Day? Because today we're talking about millennials and emotional intelligence, and it's our celebration of the youth this month of August. So, what is the importance of International Youth Day?
According to me, I think actually the importance of Youth Day is simply to just recognize the voices of tomorrow. The late Nelson Mandela said that my people do not perish due to them speaking out, but my people perish due to the silence in not advocating for things that are wrong. So I feel that the youth and the millennials are basically the voice of tomorrow, and to be able to pretty much just bring forth that our fathers and our ancestors can no longer bring forth today. So giving them a platform is really, really important because I pretty much call ourselves the solution providers for tomorrow. So yeah.
Ooh, I love that. The solution providers for tomorrow. Havel, let me come to you. What are your thoughts on International Youth Day? Why is this something that's important?
Um, if if I can highlight, in the society we always have societal divides. So it could be either by age, by sex, or by race, whichever it is. Now, in this particular case, we have a generational divide based on age. So we have, the millennials, you have your Gen Z, you have your Gen Y, and all the alphabets down the line, right? The fact that we have the International Youth Day would allow us to appreciate the contribution that the current youth in society bring onto the table, as well as create that sort of intergenerational connection between the two divides, right?
Mm,
So when we say that the youth are the answer, to our current problems, when we want the youth to join the government or to lead the change that we want to see, we're not saying that the current crop of leaders or the current crop of people who might not necessarily be categorized as youths are not doing anything. All we're saying is if we pull our efforts together, we could achieve more. And we have to all sit down on a table and understand what are all our strengths together and now harness that for the better of the general society. So the International Youth Day highlights exactly what would the youth be doing on that table and what exactly do they need to be
mm.
given to be empowered to do that. And that's why I think it's important.
Fantastic. I love that. And you've made me think of that African proverb that we like sharing a lot. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so when we do get everyone around the table across the different categories that we like to
Yeah.
divide ourselves up into, we go much further as a united force. So thank you very much for sharing that, both of you. Shiba, let me come to you and look at it slightly differently. What are companies doing to celebrate Youth Day? You work with an organization that is, I would say, probably entirely made up of young people. Yeah. So what are companies doing? What have you seen companies do? And what possible impact do you think it's had?
Yeah. I work for a company where like almost 95% are youth, right? And it's amazing. It's exciting working in a space like this. What I've seen companies doing, different companies have been doing different things, and especially now in the world of where many organizations are working hybrid, or there's a lot of remote work going. We are seeing companies that have been able to, send recognition messages to their youthful members, which is really important, especially for, when we talk about, now that we're talking about millennials. They are a group that really likes being appreciated. They are open to communication. They are the kind of people who like to be told, this is why you're good at this. Congratulations, you did ABCD, or if you're not doing well, this is why. So we've seen companies that have been able to send recognition messages to their team, to their young people, highlighting their strengths, highlighting the milestones they've been able to meet, and also the contributions they've been able to make in the organization, and even allowing fellow colleagues in the organizations to also chime in. Yeah, so the doing. We've also seen organizations that have also gone the extra mile of saying we now appreciate the role of the youth in the workplace, just like what Habo and Nyawira have said. And so we've seen organizations that are launching or coming up with youth-based projects or youth-based initiatives that would be implemented within the year till the next International Youth Day. And that helps organizations to also be very intentional about doing or implementing activities or projects that are youth-based. And then they're able to reflect on them in the next year. So we've seen organizations that have taken up, I feel like that is a really bold move to be able to say, we have a specific youth agenda here, and this is the initiative that we are taking on board, so that we can see how we are doing in the next couple of months. We've also seen companies that that are getting their senior leadership to actually be a mentor or a coach to the young people in the organization. This is also coming from a point that the millennials, the young people, really like having someone to look up to, someone who is able to guide them, someone who is able to advise them on their career journey. So we've seen some organizations that have said, you know what, let's have a mentorship program where you have senior leadership being like mentors or coaches to the youth in the organization, and this has been really helpful. And I think that's a really good way for organizations to grow their youth in the organizations. Yeah.
Fantastic. Wow. Thank you very much for sharing, Shiva. I think that those are really great ideas that you've shared, what organizations are doing. I like the last point you made around, doing mentorship. Some of our clients have introduced mentorship programs, and I know that we collaborate with them on the EQ part of it, just supporting both the mentee and the mentor with the tools to develop greater emotional intelligence, because that's something that's critical for relationships. So yes, I've seen that being well received. As you say, young people do want to grow. They have very clear ideas of what they'd like to achieve. At least that's been my experience, and so they appreciate it when they are given the chance to collaborate with someone who can support them in those dreams. So thank you very much. I think what a fabulous opening. If you weren't sure whether or not you're going to spend your time with us, I am sure that my panel have made it certain for you. As I always say, you bring your lunch and we will provide the learning in this EQ Lunch and Learn. Let me just take a moment to say hi to those who are with us. We have our regulars who join us on a monthly basis. And then we have those who may be with us for the first time. You are all very welcome to this conversation. Esther was the first one here. Esther Atera, a big shout out to you. Esther shared and logged on by 5 minutes to the starting time and indicated how she was looking forward to this conversation. So Esther, great to have you. Robert, good to have you online again. Thank you so much for joining us. Quinta, great to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us. Ian says, logged in from Austria. And wow, Nyawira, your opening statement is quite something. Celestine, great to have you. Caroline, thank you very much for joining us. Tessie, hey, great to have you online as always. I always say that Tessie was one of the panelists in the first ever EQ Lunch and Learn. Great to have you here. We have Barry, who says he's joined from Nairobi. Hey, Barry. Stephen, great to have you here. And Odipo, Thank you so much for joining us. If you are here, just give us a shout out in the comments wherever you are. Say hi, and we will say hi right back to you. We will at some point in the conversation come to a Q&A where I will ask questions that you may have of the panel. Feel free to ask your questions from the get-go, right? You don't have to wait until it's time for the Q&A. And if the question goes with what we're talking about at that moment, I'll bring it in. If not, we'll come to it at the Q&A. But feel free to engage with us, add your questions, add your comments as we go on. We have more people who've said hi, Ambassador Paul. Great to have you here. Robert Langat, looking forward to learning. I can see Joanne has tuned in from London in the UK. What an awesome crowd we have with us. So let's go to another round of questions. Now, Ira, let me come to you as a leader working with millennials in your role. Considering all the bad press out there about millennials, right? There are so many people who say millennials don't work hard enough. Some will say maybe they're not as committed, they are too high maintenance. What do you think millennials bring to the table?
To move this so that I can answer this question comfortably. It's funny how you're talking about the bad press because it's always every time people see young guys and there's just such a negative narrative behind us, is that either we're lazy, we're perceived to be the microwave generation, we're not patient enough, and we don't listen. And I tend to ask myself, if you guys put that on us as the youth, yet we are the future of tomorrow, who exactly is going to implement these changes and these suggestions that you're basically having? And we argue a lot even with my mom for sure, but it's just I'm going to disagree. Funny thing is that my team, I'm actually the youngest. I have a team of 23, and I'm pretty much the youngest, my team, as much as we're still in the millennial ideology. However, what I came to understand, following just the Simon Sinek's golden circle, the why, how, and the what, I come to understand each and every day that in the millennial industry or in this particular age bracket, it's not what you say to people that matters, it's actually how you say it. Whatever words you say to somebody either determines whether you build them or you break them. It is either destined for your organization to be for success or failure. Every time when I communicate, even with my team members and even leading them, I keep on telling them that you need to be entrepreneurs to current problems that do not sit to be part, entrepreneurs to current solutions that do not sit to be part of the problem, but sit to be part of the solution. And when you focus on the ideology of what do I come out with what I have, you will begin focusing on what greatness or asset that you particularly possess. You see that Sheba should say that most people in the millennials like to be told you're good at this, being given props, and it's all about understanding different personalities. But one thing for me as a leader is I do not talk to people the same way I talk to another person. The way I articulate and reiterate information to Shaba is not the same way I will do to Habel, it's not the same way I will do it to Mocha. So understanding personality types, definitely your emotional intelligence comes into play, but deeply getting to the fundamental value of that. When you're critiquing or giving feedback, it's not what you say that matters, it's how you say it, is what pretty much is able to get you moving. And also, I like proving people wrong. You call us the microwave generation because we don't like things slowly. We like things fast. The older generation is used to legacy and memory. We are used to implementation and execution, which is what we're basically looking forward in the next steps of our life. So, pretty much, yeah.
I love that. I like what you said about this idea that when we look at it as a negative, that, oh, it is a microwave kind of mentality, there's a good side to that, right? The good side is that, yes, people are interested in executing and executing as quickly as possible. And this then goes to Habel's earlier point that when we then merge the two kind of ideologies or the two types of approaches to life, we get greater success in our organizations, right? Because we have those who are chomping at the bit to move forward and execute and get results, and those maybe who have a more measured approach we can call it that. And it's this great marriage of the different types of individual, and that diversity is actually what gets us moving. So I really like that point. Thank you very much for sharing. Hable, again, a conversation around what do you think millennials bring to the table? And Nyawira started in her answer. I'd love to hear your thoughts
Yeah.
around what you think millennials bring to the table in
Yeah.
light of what sometimes is a lot of bad press.
Yeah. Okay. I think the first caveat I'd like to give is I'm in the fear of sounding very stereotypical or just giving a blanket definition to a really large group of people, right? So ideally on our end is for the millennials, and I loved it when Nyawira referenced Simon Sinek, because I was also going to reference the same author, because I really love his way of thinking. So Simon clearly outlines that you have a group of millennials who have been brought up in a certain way. There's a certain parenting methodology they have been exposed to since growing up, right? So either you're given a medal for participation, you're appreciated for the fact that you showed up, you're given a pat on the back, whether you came first or last doesn't really matter. So most of the millennial group would grow up being very entitled to a certain thing. Entitled here used a bit loosely. Now, when you put them in the corporate world, it comes off as people who are never necessarily patient, right? To get certain result. They will not sit down at a particular company and wait 10 years down the line to get a raise. They'll not sit down in a particular corporate and wait 25 years to be able to get to a director level. If they see a particular route which they can get there faster, they will exploit without necessarily having fear. Now, this is accentuated by the fact that they're now exposed to technology which has social media. So I'm seated in Nairobi, but I have a colleague in London where I can see, they have better living style, or rather in the company that they work for, they have some certain rights that I don't have, right? I would now go back to my boss and ask for a beanbag in the office, or I'd ask for food to be provided in the office, and such like innuendos. So it's the millennial are a group that just need to be understood, not necessarily be given sort of like that blanket cover description of being lazy or being entitled per se. What they bring to the table is the dynamic feel to a team. I have been privileged to work with teams within our company which are all full of young people, right? And these are people who will not necessarily say yes to everything. So they're the people who ask you why, right? So that dynamic makes us question exactly, do we really know what we are communicating to our young people or to the wider team, right? So you tell them we have an ambition to meet certain numbers by the end of the year, and this is what we need to do. And the next question would be why. So that dynamic is what a millennial will bring to the table. A millennial will also bring structure, right? If I can use an example of relationships, most of us, if not all of us nowadays, would define ourselves based on love languages, right? And there's so many languages nowadays. When you look at work, there's also apparently there's work language. So there's a particular structure and methodology that the millennial would prefer to operate with. So they have sort of like an operation model that they would guide themselves with, and that structure would be seen in certain activities, maybe in a corporate or in a company that has delegated particular activities to a millennial. Now, these particular examples may not necessarily apply to the wide array of all the millennials we have, but a larger group of it would apply to that. So I'd look at, the dynamic sense in a team, or the structure that will bring about, and also the accountability that they will bring about. It's not a matter of if I did something and I would easily point it to something. If I picked it up and it was an initiative that I as Hubble decided to do, then yes, I'll be answerable for it without necessarily passing the blame to someone else, because of that proactivity and that sense of instant gratification that we sort of try to seek out. So it will stick to a particular person and I will see it through. Again, probably may not apply to the whole wide array of people, but a huge percentage of it. Yeah.
I like that.
Mucha,
And I do. Yes, please, Nyawira, go ahead. Yes, 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 go ahead.
There's something that Havel has mentioned that has just sticked when it comes to the social media era, and there's something that we learned in an organization I used to work for called ISEC, whereby the youth brings a mindset that's called glocalization. So glocalization is the act of actually thinking global but acting local, whereby because we are so much into the technology and into the media and into the social industry, you're basically feeding off concepts and things from outside, which is a global area. However, those particular concepts and audios and books and information, you're actually bringing it to your own local mindset. So the reason why the youth definitely should be given an opportunity, and it is ideal, is because of the globalization mindset. They think global but articulate in a local way. So yeah.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. I think that's a really great comment. And to your earlier point that you said, Habel, I think Robert is in agreement with you that we're having a conversation about millennials, and that's quite a big bracket, and they're not all the same. And so Robert says profiling is one of the key setbacks that's pulling down millennials. And so I think that it's imperative that organizations understand that yes, there may be ways that you look at supporting millennials in your team, but understand that not everyone, kind of ticks every single box that you may have. So thank you very much for sharing that. It's key then that we understand millennials and not just stereotype them. So yes, Robert is in agreement with you there. Shiva, can I come to you? I also want to talk about what you feel millennials bring to the table, because I think this is a really important conversation as we celebrate young people. And today is the last day of the month of August. As we celebrate, we ought to articulate what the success stories are rather than the negative press that is out there. So what do you feel in your experience as a young person working with leading young people that millennials bring to the table?
Um, I love the conversation, love the globalization aspect as well. One thing I've really, really enjoyed being and also working with young people as well is bringing that spirit of, we don't care about this is how we do it here. I've loved that a lot because the millennial brings to the workplace the confidence to challenge, the confidence to challenge the status quo, the confidence to question. And I've enjoyed that. Some people don't, but I've enjoyed that because it gets us to think differently. I've worked with team members who we will sit down, we're creating a strategy, and it is normal, now to have someone just say, that's a good idea, but this is what I think about it, or I don't like that thought, or I don't like how we do things here. And with this millennials, and even some of us, and I fall into that space as well. It's not about how we do it here. It's about what's the best way to do things. And I like that contribution that these young people bring to the workplace. And leading to that, a key thing that this group of young people, at least most of them, are bringing to the workplace is that boldness, that confidence to work. I'll give you an example. Quite a number of times I have been in a situation or in a position where I have hired people that are not as qualified, when we look at how, people, recruiters look for jobs. X years of experience. Okay, now that's not happening as much anymore. But giving a chance, it's been interesting giving a chance to younger people and them coming on board and saying, yes, true, in the interview. I do not know that, but give me 2 weeks, give me 2 months. I have loved and continue to love that boldness and confidence that come with being able to say, this is what I can do, or this is what I'm not able to do. And that they are very quick to learn if they are interested, if they are keen on that. Another thing that I feel that the millennials bring to the table is that passion for learning. Yeah, that passion for learning, that passion for, because these are people who have been in a space of a lot of change. You know, they have seen how, for example, their parents grew up, maybe their siblings grew up, and even the world of tech, the world of tech also like bloomed, and during this the millennium, and so um, new thing. I right now it's more to say have, but now they're changing in professional.
If it's just on my end, Shiba, I'm losing you. Can you guys hear Shiba okay? You're breaking up somehow. Um, so it's like your words are kind of, it's like there's some disruption. Habo, when I'm speaking, is it the same with me or I'm clear?
No, you're clear. I think it's
Okay, yeah, so
Sheba.
it's just on your end, Sheba. It's on your end, Sheba. There's some sort of disruption that's kind of interrupting with your what you're saying. Not sure what the issue is, but what I heard you say, I really like. I like what you talked about in the sense that when they are interested, and this goes back again to what Abel said earlier, and what Nyawira said earlier, this idea of the Simon Sinek and that why. When they are interested, when the why is clear for them, they are passionate about learning. They are passionate about improving themselves. And I think that's been my experience as well. And I like what you said about giving people a chance and having people say that, wait a minute, I don't know. And being open enough to say, I don't know. They are not afraid to say what they don't know and to then say, but I will learn. I have a friend of mine who started a new role not so long ago, and she was telling me that she feels that that is her reality every day, where she's just constantly learning. But her personality is the type where she's willing to dive right in so that she can learn. Sheba, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to what you'd said. We can try again and see if you're any clearer. No, okay, so still the challenge, not sure what it is. All right, no worries. We can always come back to you if you want to add something else. So we're talking about millennials and emotional intelligence today. So I want us to now start talking about this idea of emotional intelligence and why it's important. But before I do that, I have a few more people who've said hi. So let me go to our comments. I have a hello from Sammy K, who's joined in from Eldoret. Sammy, you're very welcome to our conversation. Agatha Wakaba says she's happy to be here with her colleagues from Nairobi Upper Hill. So it looks like there's a number of them that are together. And Celestine was just appreciating what Nyawira said earlier, and so did Ian. Joe Sweet says, I've joined in from Uganda, Kampala. I tell you, I really love technology and the fact that we have people from all over the world joined in this conversation about millennials and emotional intelligence. How awesome is that? I've had a number of people ask me actually whether the EQ Lunch and Learn would go in person. And one of the things I've always said is no, not as far as this program is concerned, because it's not created just for people in Kenya, for example. The idea is for us to have conversations and rich contributions from people from all over. And we've had panelists who are from outside Kenya log in as well. One thing we may do, though, is have an annual event, right? That's at the end of the year to just celebrate all the EQ Lunch and Learns we've had. But thank you very much to everyone who's tuned in. Really great to have you here. Habel, I want to come to you and ask about emotional intelligence. Is it important for millennials? And if you think it is, why do you say it's important?
So emotional intelligence, which is abbreviated as EQ, is, I would say, it's 100% important. Same way you have intelligent quotient, which is the IQ, and your curiosity quotient, which is a CQ. More often than not, if you want to know how smart a person is or how well versed they are with a certain technical knowledge or technical aspect, you would measure that based on their IQ, right? But if we never ask each other based on how emotionally sound are we, or how emotionally informed of yourself are you based on your EQ levels, or exactly how you are in touch with yourself. So we understand that emotional intelligence is definitely defined as being able to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions and also those of others. Now, it's also very known that no man operates as an island, so you always be working in a team. Right now, we are a team of four here, and you, as our host, Mucha, I'm so sure you would have been very unsettled if one of us joined looking all sad, all gloomy, or all worked up on the call, right? And for us to be able to communicate to the people who are listening to us and the people who are typing out in the comments, right? It's also based 100% based on your emotions. Now, whether we like it or not, on a psychological base, your emotions dictate a lot of what you do physically and also how you engage mentally, right? So the sooner you're able to understand, the root cause as to why you react to certain ways or you react to certain things in a certain manner, the ways that you would probably handle somebody's reaction towards you in a group setting or in a team setting, or necessarily even in a two-way relationship, how exactly you would approach someone's situation, either based on empathy or based on other qualities that you'd look within the EQ, spectrum. It's really important for individual to grasp and understand that particular knowledge base for them to be able to sufficiently approach life. How I would clearly paint it again, lastly, is the same way you go to the gym, you work out to build your abs, to create that summer body, and you want to flaunt it out during summer at the beach. It's the same way you would want to understand your emotions, so that if you are seated in a group of people, or if you're seated with self, right, you would know at some point if you would want to handle such a situation. It's okay to cry. It's okay to react in a certain, and that's necessarily how, as an individual, you operate based on certain notions. Either you've been exposed to life or you've been brought up, and it makes things easier for a human being or for an individual to be able now to approach the other aspects of life based on now your understanding on your emotions. So that's how I would say it's really important for one to grasp the concept of EQ and emotional intelligence. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. One of the things you said, Hable, that I love hearing is this idea that our emotions drive behavior. Because there are very many people out there who feel or would define themselves as purely rational. So they would say, my emotions don't affect me in any way. And yet, biologically speaking, the emotional part of your brain is the one that influences your reactions, your responses to what's going on around you. And so emotions drive behavior. Whether you are the kind of person where your emotions drive behavior loudly and visibly for all of us to see, or if you're the kind of person where emotions drive behavior beneath the surface, so we can't see it, but it's still happening. And I think this is critical. And so being self-aware, which is a part of emotional intelligence, is key for millennials. Nyawira, let me ask you, um, how does cultivating, actually no, before I ask you that, because I want to talk to you, Nyawira, about the environment in organizations. Shiba, let me come to you. How are employers or HR managers contributing to equipping millennials with skills like emotional intelligence? And what do you think the impact is when organizations are intentional about supporting their teams of young people to strengthen this critical skill that Habel's talked about?
Yeah. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, we can. Welcome back.
Great. I'll just talk about the impact of organizations appreciating that EQ at the workplace is so important. I remember a couple of years ago, Mucha, you came over to our organization for an EQ training, and one of the things I'll never forget you said is there's nothing like leave your emotions at the door as soon as you get into the office. Many people grew up in a world where they used to be told, you know what, either man up or leave your emotions at the door when you get to the office or things like that. And the truth is how can I separate my emotions from myself, right? And so our organization being able to open up to
considering and actually taking up an EQ training has been so impactful, because it helped people to be able to tune in to their own emotions, to be very aware about their behaviors, and see how and be able to see, this is how my behavior is aligned to my emotions, and that has been so impactful. And there's nothing as powerful as understanding oneself, because once you're able to understand yourself, it opens up a door to being able to understand others as well. And then what happens is, when you're able to understand others, then you're able to form a strong, successful team. And so
Mm.
more organizations open up to exposing, EQ to their team members, what will happen is people will learn more about themselves, then care about others, and then we'll start having highly successful groups. Um, and when you undergo this kind of skill building, companies are also realizing that we are working with people that no longer care for micromanaging, that autonomy is so important. So back in the day, remember, I think when we were in school, so many years ago in management, they taught us something to do with mbwa, management by walking around. With the youth right now, that is, what do you mean managing by walking around? No. The youth right now crave for autonomy in the workplace in important things like what we do. I care about when I do it. I care about how I do it. I also care about whom I do it with. And if I work for an organization that provides autonomy, even in one of these areas, I will be happy, you know. And right now, we are also working with people who are very connected to purpose. Many of them are connected to meaningful, doing things that are meaningful. And so we are hearing people using words like, you know what, money is good, but being able to do meaningful work for me is more important. So now companies and also HR professionals are being forced to think about people in this way, so that now they are able to provide opportunities to nurture this kind of a space. And so we've talked about training, very important. We've talked about understanding the power of micromanaging versus autonomy, and also helping understanding the fact that there's also money versus meaning. Like, how is my organization making sure that I'm able to meet my team members' purpose even in their work? As we work on this project, as we work on the next project, how am I helping my team members to reach their goals? Because they're also very goal oriented. So the more organizations think about things like this, then the more they're able to attract quality talent and even retain it. Mucha.
Wow, thank you very much for sharing all that, Shiba. I like the parting shot you added as you concluded on everything you've shared. This idea that the more that organizations are intentional about meeting the need of the millennial, the more likely they are to retain. Because I think, we can all agree that gone are the days where someone just survives work. I always say that when I think of my parents' generation, I no longer qualify for the status of youth, but I still wouldn't classify myself as another generation. But when I think of my parents' generation, people went to work to earn a living. And that was it. If you happen to like your job, oh, that's nice. But it wasn't a requirement. Millennials have shifted that completely. If they don't like what they're doing, if they don't think it's aligned to a particular purpose that they want to be part of, they will leave. And they will leave an even high paying job to go back and reinvent themselves and start somewhere new. Sometimes even go to a job that pays them less. So I agree with you 100% that one of the critical things that organizations and HR need to do is work around what they're doing to retain their millennials. And I think earlier you talked about this idea that they're passionate about learning. And so I think that investing in building the capacity of your young people in your organization is critical, and then investing in the things that they're interested in. So you talk about purpose, you talk about autonomy, you talk about the ways that they want to be motivated, which is different to what has been the norm. And organizations really need to pay attention to this. And I feel that emotional intelligence is one of those things that underpins all of it. I say this most likely every single time we have this EQ Lunch and Learn, that emotional intelligence is not another skill that we need to add to the plate. Emotional intelligence is the plate upon which all these other skills, sit. Nyawira, let me come to you. I'm happy for you to comment as well on anything that's been said so far around how important emotional intelligence is, and how organizations are equipping millennials. But more than that, I'd like you to talk to us about how cultivating a culture of EQ helps to retain millennial talent. So Sheba talked about this, that it's important to retain the millennials. So how does creating that culture of emotional intelligence, so that means not just training the millennials themselves, but having leaders who are leading them, whether they are millennials or not, also practice this emotional intelligence. How does this help with retention?
Um, just like general knowledge goes, pretty much foundation is the groundwork of any successful structure, any successful relationship, literally anything. And if the soil is not proper, no matter how expensive the manure, the seeds you put will not make sense. It's just the same as creating that culture. If you do not, if our generation that's higher than us does not create a proper culture that invests in a high EQ or in an acceptable EQ, you instill that negativity to us, and it is that negativity that we will also throw it down to our children and the people coming beneath us. But if the culture is set from this get go correct, or is corrected in the way in the middle, we are able to to also place it on the people that come beneath us. I read somewhere that says there's a good reason to why the good Lord gave you 2 ears and one mouth. 2 ears is to listen more, one mouth is to talk less. So if you do not give us an opportunity to speak and allow us to bring this culture that is creating a shift, then you will always stay in the previous era, in the previous change. It's a high time that the guys above us accept a shift, because we are what is available, by the way. We are what is going to be hired. People are retiring. And if you don't hire us, who will also work for you? And if you don't hire me, how will I build my own empire? So just get into the program where what is there. And like you just strongly said, Mocha, when I was reading about mind programming, for a guy for impact theory called Tommy Billieu, and he talks about that your mind is divided into the conscious and the subconscious mind. Your subconscious are the programs that you have fit that determine your day-to-day activities. Your conscious are the emotions that basically feed in your system to determine your behavior. So the way you're saying day to day, if you keep on feeding this particular notion that us cannot be able to produce results, you're feeding into our conscious mind, which becomes programmed into our subconscious mind, and the culture and the foundation that is set is just wrong from the get-go. Understanding your emotions is the first step in even acquiring any form of deal in life, because you know when to speak, and you need to know if whatever you're saying, is it adding value to the conversation or is it reducing. So the foundation is important, as the foundation determines the culture, it determines the next steps that we are able to take. And us as this particular generation, the culture invested in us allows us to pass it down to the people coming beneath us.
Wow, wow. I'm sure you're hearing these powerful thoughts that are coming up. And I like that statement you made, because indeed it is a
Yeah,
statement. We are what is available, get with the program. And I
get it.
think that you are so right, that one of the things I keep telling my kids is what you speak becomes your reality. And so if
Yes,
you continue to speak negativity, that's what becomes
correct.
your reality. That's all you see, as opposed to
Ex-
seeing the positive. I think that we can all agree today that yes, there are some challenges that come with working with millennials, but I think that the good outweighs the bad. And if we are honest, there are challenges that come with working with older people as well.
Yeah.
And the idea is to mine what is good. Abel, I saw you nodding your head as
Yes, I did.
Nyawira was commenting.
Yeah.
What are your? Do you want to just add something? Your thoughts on
No,
the same? I saw you really
actually,
agreeing with her.
100% agreeing that we are what is currently available in the market. 100% agree with that. And also on the point that Sheba mentioned, the fact that you would want to give millennials autonomy, right? But I think it's also important to highlight the caveat is you're giving autonomy with a bit of guidance. I always see the idea of people strongly believing in throwing people in the deep end. You throw someone in the deep end and they figure it out for themselves, right? But you also have to understand that it's the same way when you're training a kid to take their first steps. You allow them to do it on their own, but you're standing on the side just to catch them in case they fall, right? So it's not necessarily that you're gonna you know make them make the steps per se, but that particular guidance is important to pass on the lessons either from the different generations onto the millennial group, right, and ensure there is that continuity in sense of knowledge, but not necessarily micromanaging, or as Sheba also say, you're managing by walking around and ensuring that everyone is doing their job and pointing a finger. Yeah. So that guidance is also really, really, really important to just issue the team. I mean, the younger generation, in order to make sure that they trot
You,
down
you
the
you
right
might need to
path.
come off the internet. Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that one of the challenges that leaders find is that if you've always been the kind of leader who has embraced
Did we lose Mocha?
Yeah, I think we lost Mocha.
Oh, now we have her back.
Okay. Mm. We can't hear you, Mocha. No, we still can't hear you. We can just read your lips.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. No, we still can't. No, we still can't. No. I think maybe as she's connecting, maybe Shaba, you can be able to share what are some of the challenges that you actually experience with millennials. Because as much as there's all this hype and positivity and goodness that comes with millennials and the youth, there's usually definitely a downside. So maybe we could just be able to share. I don't know, what is your downside, Shaba, and usually how do you normally like go around those challenges?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question. And what first I'd like to say is exactly, it's similar. It's quite what Habel was saying about we cannot also afford to generalize people. So, even what we are saying right now is based on, majority. Um, but some challenges I've experienced when working with young people is, you know, and these I feel that quite a couple of leaders also undergo it, is when I know what needs to be done. I already know how it should be done, what should be delivered, and how, and yet when I am working with my team, I still need to give them the opportunity for them to grow in that kind of responsibility. I need to give them the opportunity for them to also come up with their own way of doing things, as opposed to saying, you know what, this is what I did last year, this is what I did in the last season, please, take the template and move forward with it. Just
Yeah.
being able to empower. I think the word is empower. It's one thing as a leader to say that I really like empowering people, and sometimes the challenge has been to actually implement that. So, what has been interesting for me and what I've been doing to make sure I'm able to grow in that area as well, I learned something called flash mentoring. Yeah, and flash mentoring is all about giving people a chance to get things done, providing a
Shaba, can you
mentorship.
say that again? I think I missed. You said the flash
Flash
Mentoring.
mentoring.
or flash mentoring. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh
Yeah.
huh. Need to
And
write
what I
that.
learned about flash mentoring is, how it's so easy for you to, what we've had about the normal way of mentoring is sit with a mentor for a couple of weeks or months, and then you'll be able to be imparted on, certain knowledge or whatever. But flash mentoring is all about actually connecting your team members with someone who is a good mentor, even if it's just for a few minutes, a few, like an hour, 30 minutes for them to connect. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, fully, fully.
Yeah.
For them to connect, for them to learn from things, so that I'm not the kind of leader that just says, this is how we do things and you have to do them in this way. So if I realize that there's a certain thing that needs to be learned,
Working.
That's new.
yeah, if there's something that needs to be learned from, that I feel that young people or someone in my team needs to learn, I think about who would be an ideal
We
person
can
to
hear you,
offer.
Shaba. I don't know if Mucha, you're back.
Could hear you.
So I think she's been muted. I don't know if she's muted. You would like to
No, I don't
finish,
think she's
Shaba?
speaking.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there was a bit of tech,
Asla.
tech back, yeah.
Yeah.
But what I was just concluding is leaders need to take an opportunity to consider flash mentoring, especially when they realize there's something a team member can learn, and you don't want to take the approach of either micromanaging or being the like alpha and omega of all information. How about finding someone who would be able to provide 30 minutes, 20 minutes of their time in a short period of time to impart knowledge on this person for their purpose of growth. Yeah.
Ooh, I actually like that. I didn't know. I didn't know it has a name. So that I've definitely
Yeah.
learned. Well, do you want to chime in some more as you give what are maybe some of your frustrations with working with millennials and how you maybe go about it?
Oh, yeah, sure. So probably I'll mention that I'll use myself as an example because I work with the young people, but I also see the similar frustrations even stemming from myself, right? Um, I mean, as we initially pointed out, as young people or as millennials, we are always quite very quick to get instant results, instant gratification, and such like that. And it's not helped by the fact that we are widely exposed to social media, which gives us that shot of dopamine, and you feel good about yourself. You're probably feeling down at work, and you jump onto your Instagram, and get a bit 5 likes on your photo, and you feel you're doing well. So certain frustrations is we tend to translate that to almost everything, even at work. So for instance, an example I'll use based on Sheba's contribution is, if I am under a particular mentorship with a leader in the corporate industry or in my place of work, right? I'd want to see the change so fast. Like I want to know what to do tomorrow to be a director in the end of the year, or I want to know what do I need to do like next week in order for my salary to increase by 100% or something of the sort, right? There's certain things we definitely need to understand that regardless of whatever it is we believe in, we have to give it time, right? And that applies to relationship and also now your some aspect of your career development. It has to take time. A keen example again I would use is if you go to social media, right? You'd see someone who seems to sort of have their life together, and the first instant I would think is, I'd want to be that person's friend. I'd want to make that person my friend. But you have a whole array of friends behind you who someone else is probably looking at them that way, but you can't see it because your eyes are fixated on the external and trying to get that immediately, right? So it takes time to build relationships, especially in the work environment. You have to cultivate that particular culture of giving it time, understanding what to do, what not to do, and such like details, right? And not necessarily wanting it to translate to a particular result in the instance. So that's the key. That's the key frustration, if not a frustration, but say, but that's the key sort of like issue I've really seen amongst ourselves as millennials. Yeah.
I hope you guys can hear me now. Can you hear me as I'm talking?
Yes, we can.
Yay! Okay, I don't know what that is about. I have no idea what that was about. Suddenly, I've not done anything different. All I did was log out and log back in, and now you can hear me. That's just crazy. But anyway, these things happen. I always say that these are opportunities for us to practice emotional intelligence live, because there I was feeling as though I'm going to pick up this computer, and I had to just take a deep breath and count to 5 and log off and log back in again. So thank you so much. I tell you, my panel are just phenomenal. They carried on the conversation all by themselves. So thank you to you all for that. And yes, I love this idea, Sheva, of flash mentoring. How awesome is that? Because, oftentimes we think we'll wait until we have more time, right? And in this society we're living in, we never have more time. So why not capitalize on the pockets of time that you do have? And I think we can also, and perhaps you mentioned this as I was off, but I think we can say the same about investing in learning, that we don't have to wait until you have hours to be able to join a program or participate in a particular online program. You can take those pockets of moments that you have, and those can be pivotal. So if you are enjoying this conversation as much as I am, please give us a shout out in the comments. And this is the time where you get to ask your questions. So if you have any questions for my panel, feel free to share those questions now. You can share your question to a specific individual. So maybe you have a specific question for one of them. You're welcome to do that. Or you can ask a question to the group as a whole. What I want to ask them as we continue to wait for your questions is, where did your EQ journey start? Right? So, where did your EQ journey start, and what got you starting on that journey? Right? What is it that made you think, this thing called emotional intelligence, yeah, it's important? I always say that I started on my EQ journey thinking that I would help others. So I started on this journey for the benefit of my clients, but I have been the biggest beneficiary. I have been transformed as a result of my EQ journey. Hable, when did you start yours, and what caused you to think this thing called EQ, this soft skill, as we describe it, is important?
Yeah. Actually, you've just reminded me of a caveat I wanted to give at the beginning of this session was I would not necessarily categorize myself as being emotionally intelligent or, necessarily quite very expert. It's a constant journey, as I will have to say. But I think for myself is when immediately I started working in teams rather, right? And I can get back to probably uni. You understand that you definitely have to be able to accommodate each and every person with with a different kind of um, feelings or different kind of exposure on different days. So the moment you work in a team, you'll be able to know that I would meet a certain an energetic Sheba on Monday, and on Friday I can meet her not necessarily energetic, or she would not necessarily be her best self, and I have to stand in for her at that particular juncture, right? So working in teams, or rather working in particular groups of people, and working together with people, pushed me to be able to try and give myself that knowledge of what to do, how to process certain things on a really, really personal level. I think it's post, once you go post your teenagehood, and you're getting into your 20s, you sort of want to get your life together, find what's your purpose, what's the impact you can create in the world, whether you can, drive all the SDGs by yourself in a short period of time, and all that, right? At that particular juncture, I noticed, as a person, I would need to be able to know why I react to certain situation in a certain manner, right? So I'd find myself very mad at someone when they don't listen to what I'm telling them, or they listen and they hear what they want to hear, not necessarily what I'm trying to say. And I'll find myself very frustrated with that. So over time, I would learn that, it's the most sustainable manner is, I need to know, in a certain situation, if I'm exposed to a certain, let's say, interaction with a particular person, is how would I react to that? Is that okay for that other party, or for myself? Will I feel bad with myself 24 hours later for saying a certain thing, right? And then now start feeling really, really bad about what I said. So all
Hmm.
that dynamic, I figured it's important. Let me just sit with self and understand, as Habel, if I'm in a very frustrated space, what do I need to do? What do I need not to do? Right. So pretty much early 20s now to where I am
Hmm.
currently. Yeah.
I like the way you said that, to where I am currently. We're not declaring how long early 20s
Yeah.
was. I like
Yeah.
what you said, and I love the way you said, sitting with, myself, Hable, right? And for me, I always say that a deeper understanding of yourself is the first and most important step towards achieving what you'd like to achieve in life. You have to
Yeah.
start with self, with that man in the mirror. So thank you very much for sharing. And I concur with you, Hable. I don't think anyone can really say they are an expert when it comes to emotional intelligence. I know it's just semantics, and it's probably very it's just yeah, semantics. But whenever I speak in forums, I request not to be called an EQ expert, because I feel that that's just too much pressure, right? Because as humans, we have good days and we also have bad days. So I may know a bit more about EQ than you do, but the reality is it's a journey that we are all on, a journey to develop greater EQ. Nyawira, can I come to you? When did you start your EQ journey, and what is it that caused you to think about this skill and its importance?
So I think for me, I can't be able to pinpoint the exact time, but I can be able to pinpoint whereby when I got a sort of opening. It was actually when Tessie forwarded me a link to register for the first DQ lunch and learn. And I was like, you mean there's something like this? Then I shelved it.
Mm,
But when I can comfortably say that I was deliberate in becoming better, because you cannot be an expert, is actually last year. Sales, my
mm,
work is to sell. I speak for a living, and my mouth is my biggest asset. It gets me places or it doesn't. And my opening actually got to, and I was reading, this is a weird story, but when I was reading Robert Greene, The Art of Seduction, and I came to understand that things in life are not about the product, but it's about the emotions you sell. All the big companies in the billboards, they don't sell products, but they sell emotions. And I came to understand when I was reading that book is that you're a step away from your decision just based on how you act or react. And the understanding of that every day just helped me get to the bottom line that every day is a conscious decision to choose who you currently are at. So I slowly started reading, listening to podcasts, went on an almost 6 month series I call it my miracle morning routine of deliberately investing in just 1 hour of podcasts that involve mental programming, understanding your emotions, getting the hormones that contribute to your emotions. So it was just small, small, deliberate steps. And I'm definitely not an expert, but Every time I am in a particular environment that gets me agitated, or I ask myself, now this one, did they think before they did what they did? Or, was that decision above thinking or below thinking? And I tell myself, if your emotions are not going to make the situation better, then don't say it. There's a different way you can articulate the information. Remember, Nyara, it's not what you say, it's how you say. So those conversations to yourself every day is what basically just makes me where I am. And I don't think it's a journey that I can stop. I just say that I become better about it. So
Mm.
yeah.
I love that. There's something you said, Nyawira, and I was about to type it, and then you said something else, so I forgot what you'd said before. You said every day you are a step closer to the
Deliberately
person.
that I choose to be, or that I aspire
Yes.
to be.
Ah,
Yeah.
aha. You
It,
are a step
I
closer.
Yeah, so
Mm,
every time before making certain decisions, I ask myself, will the 2030 Nyawera be happy with the
mm.
2022 Nyawera? And if the answer is no, then I just need to go back and then, reevaluate. So if she won't be happy then definitely don't settle at where you currently are at now. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. So the idea is to pause, and
Mm.
and EQ ultimately then helps you to make better choices, right? Because as you pause and reflect on whether this is something that will take you a step towards this person you aspire to be, or away from the person you aspire to be, I think that's really powerful. Thank you very much for sharing that, Nyawira. And again, yes, it is a journey we are all on, and it's a journey that will transform our lives. It's a journey that will have a really positive impact. So thank you very much for sharing. Sheba, last but not least, tell us your EQ journey.
Um, I must have been in a relationship, right? And and it's possible. And I think that I must have been told, please get into my shoes, So my journey with emotional intelligence, if I can be honest, it starts with the word empathy, right?
Mm.
And I think I must have been in a relationship, and that person, we were probably fighting, and that person must have said, you need to get into my shoes to understand me. And I love reading. I am a personal development junkie. So me, I'm just like, I thought I'm a good person. I thought I'm caring. Now this person is telling me I can't. Of course, I will not fit into their shoes. Um, and so I bumped into a test, Mucha, quite a couple of years ago, and it was an EQ test, right? And I did this test, and I liked how they broke down the results, and just telling me how uh, how I'm rated, if I could say that. And so it brought me then to find a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. So I was introduced to that book, and it's a book that clearly helps you to understand how to deal with your emotions creatively, and still how to employ your intelligence in a beneficial way, if I could use that phrase. And
Mm.
that's where my world of knowing, or even just having an idea of what EQ is all about. And then later, it was very interesting, because later then I met you, and I asked myself, there is a training for emotional intelligence. It's such a big thing. And so also going through that session with you now from a workplace point of view, because emotionally, when I was reading this book, it was for me to understand myself properly, how I think, how I behave, how can be a better person even in my relationships. And then I was able to realize that I can also apply it in my work. And that was just, it has been a good experience, because that year, actually, Mucha, I had the best performing team. I'm so proud of my team. I had the best performing team, taking the lead there, and people being promoted, and getting to higher levels. And it was purely because of understanding how myself and then understanding each other as people. So this is something I can say that when you have an understanding of how emotional intelligence you can apply it in your life and workplace, you will your life will blossom.
Wow, what a fabulous testimonial. I'm sure that I can definitely say that our interaction with your organization, with Autonomy, was phenomenal, and it has given birth to so much as we work together. And so we're happy to have been part of that journey with the program that we ran within your team, and I know it's contributed to the journey you are already on. I've shared here the book Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Dr. Travis Bradbury. So you can look for that book that kicked off Sheva's journey. And obviously, we're happy to hear that we were part of that story with the intervention that we had. We
Um,
ran a program called Organizational Vitality. I'll come to you in a second, Habel, called Vital Teams, which really looks at supporting teams to develop greater emotional intelligence. And the program typically runs by kicking off with an EQ audit. And then we use that audit to tweak the training material. And then at the end, we have another EQ audit and, to see what the impact has been. And indeed, for the organization, there was an uptick in the EQ audit. So we were happy to be part of that. Habel, let me come to you. You wanted to add
no,
something.
I'm just gonna add something from Sheba when she mentioned relationship. It's actually 100% relate, 100% relate. Being right into uni, you're in a fresh relationship. You want to go all out to please your other half, and you're trying to better yourself. To be the best you can present in that particular space in a relationship. Then it hits you that whatever you're doing is not enough, right? And I remember even being in that space where I wanted to learn more about philosophy and just understand the various facets of philosophy. There are particular YouTube channels like the School of Improvement and the Art of Life, where they show you these sort of like caricature or cartoons explaining such concepts like emotional intelligence. And it paints out how, as an individual, you would be seated as a silo and thinking that you're working on yourself and you're painting yourself good and everyone will appreciate that, but someone else is also doing that and they expect you to appreciate that. So you're both looking at each other expecting to appreciate that, but no one is doing the appreciation, no? And now it opens you up to understand that it's more of, once you look into yourself, there's also looking out to others and now understanding what marries the two of you in order to appreciate each other. Yeah, so really
I
really
love
understand
that.
that.
I love that. I really like that. And that means that in organizations, then, it's important that we have work that we do as a team to help us understand how we can develop greater emotional intelligence together. We have a question on the chat that I want to get to. I always find that our time flies by. When I last looked, we had 45 minutes to go. Now we only have just over 10. So, Joe Sweet says, I have a specific challenge I would like the panel to address. One of the challenges I have encountered with the millennials is the lack of attention to detail and getting bored too quickly with assignments or projects. I'm wondering if it is I who has failed to emotionally connect. Thanks again for this great platform. So, what insight, what advice, perhaps? How would you respond to this thought from Joe Sweet that, you know, there seems to be a challenge around attention to detail? Is it the way that the project is being given out? Is it the selection of the individual? What are your thoughts? Would love to hear from any of you who would like to chime in on that one. And
So
then
maybe
there's
I could
another
just
comment. Sorry, Nyawira, before you jump in, there's another comment to you, Nyawira. So please share the different podcasts that you have been reading. You talked about your morning routine and podcasts. And so there's a question around where to find those podcasts. So as you answer Joe Sweet's question, you could also share that as well.
okay. So Josephine, I'm not sure which industry you represent. but that's definitely a factor to maybe just I would be able to understand your situation. But there can be two scenarios here. It's nobody's fault. Just like Sheba said, one of the challenges of millennials is that you love to empower people, but there are just some people who cannot be empowered. You can't take a cow to the shed and also force it to drink water. Yeah. So my first thing is maybe relook into the job description of what you're giving that person in terms of what their qualifications or what their how does it is what they do best. You see, the millennials, when they're good at something, they're good at it and they will do it really well. If they're not, two things. Option A is either some are willing to learn, option B, some are usually not. So maybe first of all, look at whatever you're giving that person, is it in line with the skill set of that employee? And if it's not, then that is where your problem is, because that's a huge thing to consider. And then second is, I think as a leader, come to the position whereby listen more, speak less. Ask the person, what right way do you feel you want to deliver this report, deliver this work? When you listen to whatever they say, remember there's no wrong or right, Drew. You just now listen, digest it, and then now give your suggestions and your opinions, and you tell them on top of point one, how about you shift it like this and like that? What do? You play with their psychology and you make them think that it was their idea, yet it was your implementation. So both of you get the same thing. You get your work done and you get it done with the way you want it by hard doing it.
Mm. I like that.
In
I like what you said. Sorry. One of the things I like what you said, and Miss Candy here is saying it's so true. She gets bored easily. And here's what she says that's key. Where I don't feel appreciated, I just walk away from it. So I think, there's also that element. And Sheba, you talked earlier about how, people want to feel appreciated. And Havel, you also mentioned this idea that these are people who've grown up being appreciated for even just taking part. You don't have to be
Yep.
the winner to get a medal. Everybody is getting a medal. And so
Every
this is the mentality that a lot of young people have. So Miss Candy is saying that, we want to feel appreciated. She also goes on to say that if what you're doing isn't really your area of interest, or if it was for a short term, then best believe it that you'll be walking away within no time. Wow. All right.
Um,
Thank you very much. Sheba, you wanted to add something.
yeah. So, I like to also be realistic and say that, and remind myself and everybody I work with, that many times we will probably be in a situation where we do what we like, but it's also good to always remember that just because you may be in that position where you do what you like, it doesn't mean that you will always enjoy everything you need to do. You get what I
Mm,
mean? Like, we have to also be realistic that life also, and even work, not everything about our work we have to love it, but it's important for us to understand why is it important for this thing to be done. If I'm working on project A, why I know I don't like maybe creating budgets, hint hint, um, I know I don't like that, but why is it important? What impact will it have on this project? What impact will it have on myself? What impact will it have on anyone else who is working on this? Because intention is, for me, intention is what is important, and
mm,
expectation setting as well. So,
mm.
also, there's this book I was just telling my fellow panelists. It's by Daniel Coyle. It's called Culture Code. And I have been implementing it because of the same thing Joe Sweet mentioned. And I learned about this methodology called before an action review. Like when you're working on something, especially with people where you're more than two or three, and maybe you have been going through the challenges you've mentioned, you can be doing a before action review that can set you up, that will help you set you up for success. And what it entails is asking yourselves a couple of questions about the project or the thing you're about to do. The first question is, what are our intended results? if we do this thing or when we do this thing, what are our intended results? We discuss it, we clearly mention it, and we need to be very clear. Then the second is, what challenges can we anticipate? What challenges can we anticipate when we do these things? Because most of the time the truth is sometimes someone may seem like they're bored, but it's that maybe they've never done it before and it didn't work well. They faced a specific challenge and they don't want to go that rabbit hole again. So it's good to ask, what challenges can we anticipate in this thing? Then the other one is, in the past, what have we or others who've done this learned from this or from a similar situation? Because there's nothing new in this world. It's possible that that role or that project has been done before or tried to be done before. Let's look back and see what has happened in the past. What did we learn, or what did others learn in a similar situation? We write it down, we discuss it, and then finally, what will make us successful this time if we do it? What will make us successful? So with those four questions, if you're working on a specific task or a project, it can help you review it before you do it, and it can set you up for success. And I have tried it, and it is working. So maybe you can check it out.
I love that. I love that. I think it will really set you up for a successful result. I think far too often we are not as intentional about the output that we desire when we begin. And so, in essence, we set ourselves up for failure. I cannot believe that it is 2 minutes to the hour and we have come to the end of our conversation. Where did the time go? I am going to ask the panelists to share with me your 30-second parting shot. But before I do that, allow me to share with you two really, really important things. First of all, if you are a professional woman who wants to leverage the power of self awareness to build confidence, develop executive presence, and achieve your big, hairy, audacious goals, I have just the program for you. It's called the EQ Masterclass for Professional Women. And if that is something that you are interested in, then I would invite you to connect with us and we will tell you more about it. The program runs over a period of 6 weeks. Just follow the link that we've shared in the comments and share your expression of interest. You'll just fill in your name, your email address, and in the drop down, select I am interested in the EQ Masterclass for professional women. We also have EQ for entrepreneurs as well. So if you're a person in business and you feel this EQ thing, I need to learn more about it to support me as I run my business, then use the very same link in the drop down, choose I am interested in the EQ for entrepreneurs. And then last but not least, if you are a HR manager, a training manager in an organization, and you would like to talk to us about an EQ certification so that you can deploy emotional intelligence in your organization, then reach out to us as well. The link is the same one. Use it for any of those three. If you're a professional woman who wants to develop greater emotional intelligence, if you are someone who would like to gain more emotional intelligence for the benefit of your business. And lastly, if you are an HR manager or training manager and you would like to develop greater EQ for your organization. As you heard Sheba say, that it transformed their organization. Reach out to us using that link. Guys are saying thank you so much for your contributions. Joe Sweet is appreciative of the comments that were shared by both Sheba, and earlier he said thank you to Nyawira as well. Your parting shot, guys. Let me start with you, Nyawira. What is the last thing you would say as we ride off into the sunset?
The only person that you should be competing with is who you are yesterday. Bottom line and facts. People in the media, people outside there, other guys, they're not you. Remember, out of 7 billion people, you are only one and it's only you. So do not compete and want to be better than all the celebrities we see. Just find a way to refine yourself compared to who you are yesterday. If the 2030 is not happy with who you are today, stop, pause, rethink, rewind, and start all over again. Thanks,
I
Mocha.
love that. I love that, Nyawira. And I think that is really at the heart of emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence is about developing greater self awareness. And so, as you connect with yourself, you're able to see yourself grow or make changes where you're not growing, where you're not happy with the person you were yesterday. I love that. Hable, over to you. What is your parting shots?
Yeah. So what I would actually want to highlight for everyone on the call is, you, in as much as you should ask more of yourself, you also need to be patient with yourself. So understand, again, as I mentioned earlier on the call, there's certain things in life that simply have to take time. So give yourself time, be patient with yourself, right? And I mean, allow yourself to fail and learn from it, and also just pick yourself up and go at it again.
I love that, Hable. I love that. Be patient with yourself, even as you ask much from yourself. And I think for me, what I've learned in my EQ journey is this idea that I also need to forgive myself for the mistakes that I may make on this journey. We've already established that it is a journey, right? And so there
Yeah.
is a chance that you will make a mistake. So be patient with yourself, even as you ask much of yourself. Sheva, last but not least, what is your parting shot?
Practice loving kindness on yourself. We only have you, and so before you go to change the world, change the teams, change everyone around you, just look inward, yeah? Walk your walk. And then when you work on yourself, when you're kind to yourself, you'll be able to be kind to others. Thank you so much, Mucha. This was lovely.
Oh my goodness. Talk about mic drop. Ha! What a way to end the session. All three of you have just said such powerful, powerful things. Honestly, there is nothing else I need to say except for what has been said by these three awesome, phenomenal panelists. As Nyawira said, the only person you should be competing with is the person you were yesterday. And I really believe emotional intelligence will help you to do that as you develop greater self awareness. Hable says, be patient with yourself, even as you ask much of yourself. Success takes time. And last but not least, Sheba says, practice loving kindness on yourself before you go out to change the world. Look inward. What a phenomenal conversation it has been. A very big thank you to Hable, a very big thank you to Shiba, a very big thank you to Nyawira. You guys have been phenomenal. And a special thank you for holding fort when I seem to have the technical issues I had. You just ran the conversation seamlessly as though we had practiced. Please note to everyone watching, we did not practice such. So thank you very much, and a big, shout out to you all. Thank you very much for the amazing insights that you have shared today. So we have come to the end of our 19th episode of the EQ Lunch and Learn. And as always, we brought you the learning. I hope that you enjoyed your lunch. Thank you so much for joining us. If you would like to continue on your EQ journey, remember the link that we shared earlier. Get in touch with us if you are a professional woman who wants to develop greater emotional intelligence for your success. As you heard the panel say, EQ is a critical skill. And as I always say, it is the plate upon which all other skills reside. If you are an entrepreneur and you feel you need to develop greater emotional intelligence so that you can navigate this thing called entrepreneurship, which can be a beast, get in touch. We have a program just for you. And if you are a training manager, or if you are an HR manager and you want to deploy emotional intelligence within your organization, get in touch with us as well. And we will talk to you about how exactly you can do that. Thank you so much for spending your lunchtime with us. We do not take it for granted. And at this time, I am going to sign out and say goodbye. Thank you for joining us today.